Hi, everybody. This is D. Knight. I'm the author of My Whirlwind Lives, Navigating Decades of Storms, coming out soon from Guernica World Editions. Today, I want to read the last chapter. It's called A Battle to Protect and Expand Democracy, and I think it's important for me to read it now at the start of 2022 in the wake of the failure to uh, to pass voting rights legislation and to stop the assault on voting rights by right-wing forces across the country. So here goes. I hope you like it. A battle to protect and expand democracy. The lessons and impact of the 2020 elections are far-reaching. The constant charges of voter fraud, really a campaign of attempted suppression of black voters, harken back to the Jim Crow era that followed the post-Civil War Reconstruction period. The tactics used by the Trump campaign are a harbinger of continued stormy times ahead, and the efforts of mainstream congressional Democrats to blame the left for their disappointing results can be considered a preview of coming battles, both inside and outside of the Democratic Party. At a Congressional Democratic Party caucus meeting on the Saturday after Election Day 2020, while tens of thousands of Trump opponents were celebrating in the streets of cities across the country, mainstream Democrats stood up to blame progressives for costing them several important seats. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shot back. Progressive policies do not hurt candidates. Every single candidate that co-sponsored Medicare for All in a swing district kept their seat. We also know that co-sponsoring the Green New Deal was not a sinker. Mike Levin was an original co-sponsor of the legislation, and he kept his seat. Bernie Sanders echoed AOC, adding that 70% of voters expressed support for Medicare for All, adding a massive jobs program and a Green New Deal. AOC blasted mainstream Democrats for trying to blame the movement for Black lives for their loss. She highlighted the huge share of white support for Trump, who whipped up his supporters on the dangers of rioting, socialism, and anarchism. AOC said we need to do a lot of anti-racist, deep canvassing in this country. She added that a lot of Dem strategy is to avoid poking the bear. That's their argument with defunding police, right? To not agitate racial resentment. I don't think that is sustainable. She meant white racial resentment. She said, I need my colleagues to understand that we are not the enemy, and that their base is not their enemy, that the movement for Black lives is not their enemy, that Medicare for All is not their enemy. If they keep going after the wrong thing, they're just setting up their own obsolescence. Neither the mainstream Democrats nor Biden nor Harris can be considered true friends of progressives and our base, working class people of all colors and genders who need more than merely defeating Trump and Trumpism. That was important, and we blocked with them for that. But we must push for an end to police killings, to homelessness and evictions in the midst of a pandemic. We need an end to the loss of jobs and loved ones, to a virulent health crisis that could have been controlled months ago, as it was in other countries. People need an end to spiraling debt, a realistic hope of having homes and a planet to live on past 2030, and we need peace. Instead of peace, there are endless wars and threats of more. Biden's incoming team includes experts in military domination who are eager to continue and intensify the new Cold Wars against China and Russia. Their main quibble with Trump on foreign policy was that he was too willing to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Biden wants the U.S. to return to the return to the head of the table globally. In other words, domination as usual. There's no talk of reducing the military budget or stopping the nuclear arms race against Russia and China, or of using those gargantuan funds for domestic programs. Biden has been ending his speeches with a prayer for our troops, almost nothing about bringing them home. He voted for the Bush wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. He co-authored the 1994 crime bill that beefed up police forces and intensified mass incarceration of people of color. In 1996, he joined President Bill Clinton to end welfare as we know it, according to them, saying the culture of welfare must be replaced with the culture of work. Let's see if he can deliver a massive jobs program now. In June 2019, he assured a group of Wall Street titans with these words, "No one's standard of living will change. Nothing would fundamentally change. I need you very badly. I hope if I win this nomination, I won't let you down. I promise you." A change to the huge gap between rich and poor is not likely without a fight. Next section is Black Voters and the Myth of Voter Fraud. On November 6th, Biden told African Americans, "I owe you," since their votes put him over the top in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Now he needs to deliver, with an end to police violence, mass incarceration, unemployment, and institutional racism, instead of mere cabinet window dressing. He has made a reasonably good start, but he needs to be held accountable. Black voters in those states overcame a juggernaut of voter fraud allegations designed to suppress black votes. It was the Republicans' main gambit for winning, and one that has served well for generations, most notably in the 2000 elections. Black leaders in Jacksonville, Florida protested then that their voting rights were denied, and 28,000 ballots in Palm Beach County were uncounted in 2000. Richard Hazen, author of The Voting Wars, said, "The myth that Democratic voter fraud is common and that it helps Democrats win elections has become part of the Republican orthodoxy." The late Congressman John Lewis, famous for braving police and their dogs while demonstrating for civil rights and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, said of the voter fraud myth that, "I thought we'd passed this long ago, but it seems we must fight this over and over." One celebrating black voter in Atlanta told TV reporters in November 2020 that she credits Stacey Abrams for the Biden win in Georgia. Abrams lost the race for governor in 2018 to Brian Kemp, who at that time was the Georgia Secretary of State. Abrams filed a federal lawsuit claiming that Kemp had impaired citizens' ability to vote, using voter roll purges and abusing voter ID laws, depriving them of their rights under the First, 14th, and 15th Amendments. As founder of Fair Fight Action, Abrams conducted a 2-year campaign, traveling to all Georgia counties and registering tens of thousands of people to vote. These numbers made the difference in Georgia on November 3, 2020, and again on January 5, 2021, in the senatorial runoff. The battle for democracy is not over. While Trump denounced vote fraud, the reality has been voter suppression. It's a continuation of Richard Nixon's famous Southern strategy of 1968, Ronald Reagan's promotion of states' rights in 1980, George H.W. Bush's Willie Horton campaign ads in 1988, and George W. Bush's manipulation of votes in Ohio and Florida in 2000. In all these cases, the goal was to encourage white voters and foster efforts to suppress black voters. Trump was so incensed it didn't work this time that he mounted a constant barrage of bizarre efforts to change the vote. Next session is the Electoral College and winner take all. Then there's the Electoral College, through which Trump won the presidency in 2016 while losing the popular vote. It's a winner-take-all game at state level, no matter how close the vote. And states with smaller populations have a disproportionate number of electors based on the total of their congressional representatives and senators. The system is a time-worn relic of the constitutional deal between northern capitalists and southern slavocrats, by which slaves were counted as 3/5 of a person for purposes of representation in Congress. Not that they got to vote, but they got to beef up the population of the slave states. After the Civil War, black people were counted as 5/5 of a person, but their votes were suppressed by intimidation and the infamous Black Codes, which denied African Americans their rights as citizens. The framers of the Constitution never intended for black people or women to vote. It took a century of struggle following passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that recognized the rights of the freed slaves after the Civil War. The 1965 Voting Rights Act reinforced those rights and sought to end the Black Codes and massive voter intimidation throughout the former Confederate states. Long lines at scarce polling places in black communities, massive purges of voter rolls, plus voter ID requirements, and much more show this intimidation continues to the present. Black people in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin finally beat it back in 2020, but white supremacy continues to reign across the country in myriad ways. The Electoral College reflects the disproportionate number of electors in the South and other states with smaller populations. To solve this injustice, we need to abolish the Electoral College, or at a minimum, end the winner-take-all rule at state level. White Southern senators object. According to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, the desire to abolish the Electoral College is driven by the idea Democrats want rural America to go away politically. Rural America is not the problem. Racism is. And segregationist Alabama Senator James Allen in 1969 declared, "The Electoral College is one of the South's few remaining political safeguards. Let's keep it." He meant the white South. Only a much larger Republican loss in Congress could allow abolition of the Electoral College. So the alternative battle is to end winner-take-all. The National Popular Vote Bill would guarantee the presidency to the candidate who receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. It has become law in 15 states and D.C., with a total of 196 electoral votes. It needs an additional 74 electoral votes to go into effect. The bill has passed at least one chamber in 9 additional states, with 88 more electoral votes. Georgia voters got a huge victory January 5, 2021, when Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff won 2 Senate seats, effectively demoting Mitch McConnell to Senate Minority Leader. Georgia had become the epicenter of the fight for democratic rights. Black voters and their white allies, who successfully flipped the state for Biden, mobilized in unprecedented numbers to win. Metro Atlanta DSA issued a statement. This was a huge victory for grassroots democracy. Organizations led by people like Stacey Abrams fought voter suppression. Others worked hard to activate voters in our Latinx communities. Labor groups like Unite Here put an incredible amount of resources into the race. We donated, canvassed, dropped lit, phone banked, text banked, and voted, and we did it together. I'll end part 1 here. The next part has the title, Fighting Against Fascists and for Democracy. Stay tuned. We'll be back at you shortly. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed what you heard so far. Bye for now.